You are listening to Single Smart Female. This is Jen, explaining the possibilities in your love life and examining your mantourage dating experiences. I am here to help you do life and love on your terms by tipping the scales of love permanently in your favor. So don't forget to text this episode to all of your single smart girlfriends, and let's get started. Hello there, single smart female. It is Jen, your romantic fairy godmama, coming to you today with a listener question for your listening pleasure. Okay, so Miss SoCal Hottie with a small hotation has submitted some very important questions for all of us to understand. Now, I will say the first time I read this, I did actually laugh out loud. Okay, a mantourage is not a hotation, but that was funny. I'll give you that. That was hilarious. And before I read it, I want to also acknowledge one of the questions that we do ask when you submit a question is, how did you originally find Single Smart Female Podcast? And she says, my therapist. She recommended mantourage dating and directed me here. So thank you to your therapist, who is obviously brilliant. With that said, Miss so-called hottie with a small mantourage, or in her words, hotation, right? Dear Jen, I started dating this dude 3 months ago, and he started texting me every day after the first date. Since then, the texting has slowed, but is still almost every day. The past few times we hung out, I have gotten that vibe that he's looking to keep things casual. We haven't talked about what we are looking for, and that sometimes makes me anxious, which makes me think about him more, and then I realize that I am conflating my frequent thoughts of him with actually liking him. I was going to bring it up the next time that we hang out just to get some clarity. I'd be happy to keep him in my mantourage and redirect my attention elsewhere, but here's the issue. We don't hang out very often, only once every 2 to 3 weeks, even though we live about an hour from each other. He has initiated a few times, but I've typically been the one initiating. He always makes himself available to me, but I'm tired of that dynamic and have decided to stop initiating. That being said, if he isn't going to try to see me, I would like us to stop the frequent texting. It makes things confusing for me emotionally, and it also makes me frustrated that he texts me so often without trying to see me. How do I go about slowing down the texting? Is this something that I need to communicate with him, or is it better to just adjust this by adjusting my own behavior? Now, context. I am mantourage dating. I have one other person that I've been seeing regularly for about the same amount of time, and this is the person that I have the most feelings for currently, and I'm looking to find a third guy for my mantourage after recently ending things with my previous third guy. Okay. She also says, and when I ask, how long have you been single? I said, haven't been in a serious relationship for 4 years, but have had semi-significant entanglements since then, mostly on an exclusive basis, but I'm moving away from doing that. Good girl. Proud of you on that. Okay. So let's dive into this because there's some really good pieces here. And I want to acknowledge your genius first, okay? I hadn't even thought about putting it this way before. You know, as all of you know, I am huge on us staying away from the idea of hyperfocus. But what we do, especially in hyperfocus, when we have these repeated thoughts of somebody, we automatically think that that means that we like them and not just something has embedded itself in us and gone on repeat. We just automatically assume that means I have deep, deep feelings for that person. And you are a fucking genius to recognize that there was the potential that you were conflating your frequent thoughts of him with actually liking him. Or if you got that from your therapist, I don't know, but somebody here in this mix is an absolute genius, and I want to acknowledge you for that. But yes, that is true. Frequent thoughts do not mean that you actually like someone. Okay, now let's get to the other stuff. Let's talk about the endless texting. So first off, I'm going to say this many times over the course of this podcast. If you get sick of it, sorry, you're going to hear it anyway. Real life does not exist on your phone. It doesn't. It just doesn't. Sorry, no way, shape, or form. It's not on social media. It's not in texting. It's not on your phone. Real in-person human connection is the absolute best that there is, and that is what we thrive on as women, at least a majority of women. Now, my introverts, it doesn't mean that you never thrive on that. You do need some of that. You might need a little bit less. That's okay. But it 100% does not exist on your phone, okay? So, with that said, I'm going to tell you my premise, and I think I've mentioned this a few times, but I'm going to keep mentioning it. And what I have my clients do, if they, of course, follow along, is, especially with dating apps, with texting, all those things, is I have them block their day out. Have specific times when they check messages, when they do things, but actually focus on engaging in real life. Because then you automatically, when you do this, when you set it up, when maybe a couple times a day that you're checking, and with your dating apps, I think it only should really be once a day, and you have some time to sit down to respond, things like that, and you're blocking out your day a little bit differently and better, especially when it comes to this, because, honestly, you don't need your personal life going on throughout your entire day. You can segment your day, you can focus on your work, you can focus on your colleagues, and then you can focus on your personal life. You can segment your day and make it a lot easier in your head instead of having the dings on your phone going off all the time. And then all of a sudden you've taken this huge, gigantic weight off you. Also, for my ladies that are still sleeping with their phones on, put that shit on airplane mode and just turn the alarm on. Give yourself a break. If you're waking up for notifications through the night, you're fucking yourself significantly. Okay? You need that rest. Adored women prioritize self-care. Why? Because then they can have all the incredible ventures they want, and they're not going to lose their shit because they're already fried from not taking care of themselves. All right. Now, with that said, there's a couple ways that you can actually handle this. I'm totally cool if you want to keep him in your mantourage. If the endless texting is not something that you want to participate in, which I don't think anyone should. By the way, let's make this very clear. If you're texting somebody all the time, especially with men, don't be surprised when they stop asking to see you, because basically they already know everything that's going on in your life. When you start segmenting your days and spending just a little time here and there responding and not feeling like it's your obligation just because, oh my God, he texted you and you owe him a big long story after that, everything changes. Because then he has time to actually be curious about you. You do not have to text somebody every single day or every person in your entourage every single day. That shit's tedious and it's not going to get you what you want. And absolutely, men, stop asking to see you. They don't have a need to. They already know everything that's going on in your life. So that's why I definitely recommend you stop the endless texting in all parts of your life, not just with this specific man. So I agree with you there, 100%. That said, there's a couple ways to do this. You are asking whether you should do it by saying something or behavior modification on your part. And by the way, I love how much insight you have into this already. And this is such a great question for that reason. The only thing I'm going to caution you on is to work on not, because I can tell, especially because you're probably processing things with your therapist and stuff, is try not to overanalyze. Really set yourself into a system that gives you like mantourage dating the right way, which you can learn how to do at mantouragedating.com, MANTOURAGE dating.com. Get a free 3-day class from me. Learn how to do it the right way so you have a system in place where you're not having to process and analyze the shit out of everything that's going on. But I do commend you on your foresight into what's going on. So yes, you do have two options. And you could do either one. You're going to have to make the decision on this. And I'm going to tell you what the options are. So you could send him a text in a response to a text that he sends you and says along the lines of, "Hey, handsome, always make it fun and friendly." Although I fully admit I used to enjoy our frequent texting, I realize that it's not as fun as getting to see you in person. Let me know when you'd like to take me on our next date. Side note, don't use the word hang out. not just you, everybody. And you used it a couple times in this. You're not hanging out. You're going on a date. Okay? This isn't your friend you're hanging out with. This is a man that you have a romantic interest in. You're not hanging out. And if he has a problem with that word, then you definitely, that's a great indication of how he views everything at this point. And that's fine. Now, some guys, when they're really nervous, will use the word hang out. But as soon as you switch it to a date, to the idea of going on an actual date, they'll be fine with it. Okay? It's the ones that don't have any interest in actually dating you, that they want to keep things casual, that will buck against that phrase. So it's a great way to define things, to literally define things. And by the way, just because he defines it that way right now doesn't mean it won't change in the future. Sometimes when we set things up the way that you might have it set up, if you guys have been saying hang out, things like that, it might take him a little bit to unwind from that. He might have his own resistance to that. But as long as you don't keep placating him on the whole let's hang out thing, unless you're doing it under the expectation of friend stuff, nothing else, nothing physical, nothing, all that, then I would pull back from that whole idea. It'll eventually work itself out if the guy is worth your time. Okay, so again, that's option number 1. You're more than welcome to use that. You're going to have to decide what you want to use. Option number 2, and this is probably the option I like even better than option number 1, is I want you to heat your fucking mantourage up. Or in your words, your hotation. It's not a hotation. Oh, that still makes me laugh. Okay, so heat your mantourage up and only text him when it feels fun and pleasurable to you. So that means when he says something that makes you laugh and you want to respond and you enjoy and things like that. And as you're having more fun and you're not communicating with him all the time and giving him your itinerary, which a lot of us do, then all of a sudden he's going to start to get curious about you again. And they have this radar. He'll either fall off. Well, I will say there is a possibility of falling off completely where that's the universe taking care of you, or he's going to start stepping up and requesting to see you. And then you can also, when he says something that's even similar to hanging out, you could say to him, "Ooh, are you asking me out on a date?" All right. And then you could start reframing it. Again, don't worry if he has some resistance to it. Play with his resistance. Don't take all resistance as rejection. You have to start developing thick skin if you want to walk in my world of being an adored woman. You cannot take everything personally and be sensitive about everything. Although I have the feeling, Miss SoCal Hottie with a small hotation, I have a feeling you actually have thicker skin than maybe that you're letting on. And I think you can do this and you can take this to the next level. Now, let's talk about the anxiety and stuff. Well, yes, part of the anxiety is conflating frequent thoughts with actually liking him, okay? That's how we hyperfocus. Hyperfocus is a great confusing factor, and it's going to rip apart anything that has any real potential. So, ladies, again and again and again, train yourself to not hyperfocus. Yes, it's training. It's habit training. Very, very important. So, and this is the other piece of this. So I told you, you need to heat up your mantourage and text him only when it feels truly fun. The other piece of this is that mantourage dating is way more than just actively dating. In fact, it's not incessantly dating, as some women like to confuse. It's selectively dating, but in a very fun way, and understanding that you are in the process of your romantic research. You're learning about yourself. And I know everybody thinks, I already know everything I want. No, you don't. You don't have even a clue yet because you haven't experienced things that you don't know about yet. So there's so much you need to learn. And this experience is the best way to do that. You need to be taking care of yourself because, again, we were talking about not getting sleep, not taking care of yourself if you're eating shit food all the time, if you're smoking 2 packs a day, if you're heavily drinking, all that kind of stuff. You are going to have high levels of anxiety, or it could sometimes depression. It could be not just anxiety. It could also be just anger. There's all kinds of shit that can fuck with you. So take really good care of yourself. You don't have to be perfect. I'm not saying that shit whatsoever. I'm not perfect by any means, but you have to have a great baseline of taking care of yourself, getting in-person, actual connection with people, and learning to enjoy men, and then everything is going to start to change from you. It's part of the way, and of course, I can teach you specifically how to customize it to your life if you decide to work with me at any point. But you have to be able to take this process and understand that it is a system that you have some front loading to do by making certain things happen. And then you step into and you enjoy and maintain. And then eventually, as you're learning all the lessons that you need to learn, and it's really you're starting to realize that you can have anything you want romantically. You can walk in my world of being an adored woman. At that point, then he shows up. And sometimes he doesn't show up looking exactly like the way you think he is going to show up looking. So there might be a process of still continuing your mantourage dating like I did with my husband until he decides to step up and be everything that you've wanted him to be. Okay, lover girl, it's time for the final thought on today's show. Endless texting with a man eventually leads to one of two things: your boredom with him, or he stops asking you out. Hey, lover girl, thanks for joining me today and texting this episode to all of your single smart girlfriends. If you have a question that you'd like to submit for on-air consideration or want to learn more about working with me, then meet me over at singlesmartfemale.com. See you there.